that you couldn't really fly a helicopter. Otherwise, I would have came up with a different idea. I told you it was a bad idea.
Jerry, this is one of those projects that people like me have probably been asking you at events like this for 30 years. I don't know, since the last Beverly Hills Cop movie.
Right.
How long has this been in development, like truly in development, and sort of what kind of starts and stops did you face along the way?
It wasn't really that much in development because the previous managements at Paramount didn't want to make it, and they owned it. And they sold it to Netflix, and Netflix says, we'd like to have another Beverly Hills Cop. And that's when we really started to work on it and make it happen.
Mark, I just love how faithful this film feels to the canon. I mean, from the opening credits sequence, which feel like we're transported back to the 80s, and I mean that as like the highest compliment.
Thank you.
How important was that, and how much of that was the sort of goal to almost sort of retrofy your approach to filmmaking here?
Yeah, it wasn't so much about like retrofying, it was more to take inspiration from. Do you know what I mean? I really, like Jerry came to me with a script, I had a huge love for the first two films. You know, so for me, it was about what made those films really special, and how do I pull that into the modern day. But also, how do I use nostalgia too? You know, it's a really powerful tool. You know, and so I really thought about that and thought, how do I take that feeling of those first two films and transport that into a modern day? So sometimes it's, you know, doing a new version of things that we've seen and understand before. Other times it's just, you know, using the music in a similar fashion, looking at the edit, you know, like sort of just really analysing that. Also keep it really grounded. I think, you know, not just those first two films, but films from that time period, I felt were much more grounded and pretty gritty too. The first two films were gritty, so I had this great kind of point of inspiration to draw upon, and I really used it.
And there would be no Beverly Hills Cop series without Mr. Eddie Murphy, of course. How involved is he in the creative, sort of behind the scenes? I mean, obviously he's embodying this character, but like, what kind of notes did you get from him?
He always gives us great stuff. He really does. I mean, whether it's improv or his ideas, how to keep the series grounded, what his performance should be, and comes up with wonderful ideas. He just does. He's just a really creative individual.
Yeah. What was your most surreal moment working with a legend like Eddie Murphy?
The most surreal moment, I think it was right back at the start. It was in camera tests. It was like, I sort of had an idea. I was like, you know, we haven't seen Axel for 30 years. So it was like, okay, how's this going to feel? Mm-hmm. And then Eddie sort of jumped in front of camera. He had his back turned. He put the jacket on, put the glasses on, turned to camera, and he was in character. And I was just like, shit, I got Axel Foley. Axel Foley is back, and I felt that instantly, even in the camera test, before anything had happened. He's just, his persona and everything, he just took it on. Yeah.
Like you said last night, he hasn't aged.
He hasn't aged.
It's insane.
I know, it's incredible, isn't it?
Did he retire his Axel Foley laugh? I was waiting for that to happen. Was that ever a conversation?
We sort of talked about it, and Eddie really had a very distinct sense of, it's been 40 years too, how he wanted to play the character, you know, and he wanted to not pretend like time hadn't passed. So Eddie is a really clear vision for it.
Jerry, speaking of things that people like us ask you at press junkets like this, any movement on Top Gun 3?
Is there any movement? It's moving.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's not at light speed, but it's moving.
Yeah. Any idea on when we might expect it?
It's really up to Tom. He's got, you know, he's doing Mission, and he's got an En route to movie he's doing, and I think he's got another movie behind that. So you just got to get in line. On the
he's going to space too, right?
Yeah, he's going out to space. So you know, when we get him back from space, maybe.
You can combine the two, Jerry.
Yeah.
There you go.